Hi, everyone. I'm Ilona Varo. Thank you for joining the Thrive Through the Holidays podcast. I'm here with dietitian Jessie. I don't know how to pronounce your last name. I should have checked this beforehand.
Okay, it's rye like the bread.
Rye, but with a W. Excellent. And we're going to be chatting about ways to best support ourselves nutritionally, and just our relationship to food, especially around the holidays. So if you could give us a quick little intro of who you are, and then we'll get into some questions.
Thanks, Alana. Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I'm up in Northern California in Napa. I founded As You Are Nutrition, which is we're a group practice. We take insurance and we primarily work with disordered eating and eating disorders, but really the whole nutrition, anything that's nutrition relevant in terms of diseases that we'll work with. We do one-on-one counseling, and yeah, we've been around for almost 5 years. And before that, I did outpatient counseling. I've worked a lot with severe mental illness, substance abuse, all the co-occurring mental health disorders that can go along and impact our relationship with food, our food choices. Our practice also works with a lot of kids and families. And I know, yeah, and I know we're getting lots of questions around the holidays because it's such a food-centered time. And also just the holidays can bring up memories. Just to kind of break the ice here, I've had some clients, as a positive note, that are doing really well with their relationship with food right now and able to compare themselves to years past when they really weren't able to enjoy the food holidays.
Right.
So that's been kind of encouraging. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I always like to use this time as reflection because the things that come up around the holidays highlight challenges and things that we struggle with all throughout the year. It just feels like a very condensed, under the microscope time.
Yeah.
Um, let's kind of get into the things that you're seeing in your practice. I'm sure people tuning in will also be able to benefit and relate because these are such human, food and celebration and, community and coming together around food is just all very inseparable. So, what have you been seeing in your practice, particularly around this time?
Yeah, well, most recently, I don't know when this is going to go live with everyone else, but it's the week after Thanksgiving, and so we've been unpacking a lot of what happened over Thanksgiving, and I think mostly what I've been hearing from clients is family members doing a lot of body comments, and weight talk and comparing their current weight to their past weight, and just lots of numbers seem to be floating around, and so that is impacting people not wanting to eat or not listening to their body as much. I'd say that the theme that I've been talking about with clients is autonomy and really encouraging them that no one knows what they need to eat more or better than they do. That they
Mhm.
have, like, no one can tell them when they're hungry. No one can tell them what their favorite food is. Like, that's really something that only they can know, like probably one area in their life where they do have 100% autonomy. And so trying to identify the things that are wanting to come in and break that autonomy, whether it's like outside food conversations or commercials or diet talk that is trying to come in and influence our own autonomy. So
Yeah.
that's actually the conversation I've been having a lot with my clients around like leaning into their values and having that be a source, and then just encouraging them that they do have autonomy over their food choices and no one else needs to influence that.
Yeah. And I feel like that goes right hand in hand with as you are nutrition, right? Like who you are, autonomy, celebrating
Yes.
yourself as you are, who you are. But, that reminds me of a conversation I had earlier with one of my clients that can feel very isolating and lonely. I was talking to this person and they said, I feel so left out. I feel like so my siblings and cousins and people in the family that eat the way that maybe the family system promotes and endorses and celebrates, they get a lot of attention, they get positive feedback, and then if I want to eat something else, then maybe I don't get as much positive attention or I kind of get othered. Can you speak to how these emotions really affect our food choices and maybe some skills to utilize when we are feeling, big feelings at the dinner table and that's impacting our desire for what's in front of us?
Yeah, no, you bring up a really good point in terms of the food culture and everyone needing to participate in whatever that is. And if you want to honor your own autonomy or not be a part of that or want to choose a different food, that it's not always supported. So I would say when that comes up, it's so great to have your team to process those situations through so you can connect the dots and gain more confidence in honoring your autonomy with that. In terms of in the moment, just giving yourself permission to step away from the table for a little bit, really utilizing things from your self-care toolbox to ground. If it's happening like real time at the table, if there's some things that you can do for sensory needs, whether it's like bringing a weighted blanket to the table, or can you have some like music, one of your headphones in the background, just to make sure that your body knows that you're listening to it. There's like a really great somatic tool that I'll like doing with clients that are struggling to give themselves permission to eat, where you do a body scan and see where it's coming up in your body, where you're feeling it, and putting your hand on that place, whether it's like a lot of people, it'll be like their neck or their chest or like these areas that are close to our digestive system or our tummy, and putting your hand on that area and saying, I hear you, I see you, I'm listening. Even though there's all this other stuff going on that's trying to break my connection to my body, I hear you. Because if we don't tell our body that we're listening, it'll get louder and it'll get louder if we don't kind of let it know.
Yeah.
So taking some time and stepping away to do that, or feel like if you can do that in the moment, that's if it's coming up like right then. In terms of preparing, it will really depend on, everyone is so individual in terms of their recovery journey or their relationship with food or what they're working on. Sometimes with our clients, we'll really like to just have like a holiday party game plan where instead of having to make decisions about food in the moment, which can be really overwhelming, we just decide ahead of time, this is what I'm going to eat, this is what I'm going to put on my plate. No in the moment decisions, and that's it. And
Mm-hmm.
that can really take a lot of that anxiety of the moment out of it, of like, okay, I already made my plan, this is what I'm having.
Yeah.
And have some confidence.
Yeah. There's a lot of prep work that goes into that one dinner or that one
For like 15
happy
minutes.
hour. Yeah, exactly. And that's definitely been the theme with all the professionals that I'm speaking to is preparation, whether that's processing, identifying, labeling, using skills, practicing skills, visualizing. There are so many things that you can do. And most of us have been through these experiences before, so we're not really going to be shocked by what Aunt so and so says or how we're, being perceived. So there is a lot of preparation that one can do.
Yeah.
And like we said earlier, this is something that's going to come up for the rest of our lives in various settings. It's not just around the holidays. So
Yeah.
getting to know yourself and getting to know your needs and then preparing with skills and support is really a gift that's important to give to ourselves.
Yeah, no, you bring up a good point too, because we can use this time as an opportunity to help make the rest of the year easier. It's like, oh man, if I made it through this holiday, then I can make it through like these other events that come up or these other gatherings or these other food situations that feel really scary. And it is a muscle. The more that we are prepared and we're identifying and we're being mindful and practicing the tools that we have from our clinicians, the easier it will get, where it's not going to feel as loud or you're not thinking about it that percentage of the time. I'll try to get with my clients that are thinking about food or their body 90% of the day. Let's try to get that down to like 50% or 40%.
Yeah.
And so maybe during the holiday, it's going to be even louder and we can only bring it down like 10 or 15%, but that's still great. And
Anything
so,
is an improvement. Yeah.
yeah.
And the relationship to body image, food, movement, it's, I think, a lifetime journey. It's not just like, okay, we're done. So continuing to work on it, like you said, even if it's just a small incremental shift, that's still going to compound and be beneficial for you as you kind of move through time.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I'm thinking as you're talking to is these are just one day's worth of meals. And so one thing, like a tip that I'll have people do on the day that there's going to be that one large meal, is to make sure that you're still nourishing yourself. Breakfast, lunch, snacks, like the urge to just restrict all day for that one meal is really loud. And especially if other people are saying, oh, I'm not going to eat till dinner, or I'm saving room, or like these comments that maybe are benign to everyone else can feel really triggering if you're already trying to encourage yourself to eat. So I know that was something with leading up to Thanksgiving and preparing with clients was, okay, we're going to make sure we still eat breakfast. Let's eat lunch. What time is dinner? Okay, it's going to be a little bit earlier than normal, maybe a little bit later. Like we want to,
Yeah.
how can we, again, plan it into our day and use the foods that are available for that holiday meal to like fit what we would normally eat at a time. Like it doesn't have to be as different as it is for other people that are maybe approaching it differently.
Yeah, yeah, it's so funny that you mentioned that because I was at a Thanksgiving with like 40, 50 people, and the number of times that they were like, I haven't eaten yet today, and like with such pride and like gearing up to like dive headfirst into Thanksgiving. And I was just trying to like, okay, I'm not a therapist today. I'm not going to be the disordered eating therapist. We're gonna keep our opinions to ourselves.
Yeah.
But I couldn't help it. I mean, I definitely had to say like, that's an interesting choice, and like, eh.
Your
But
body
yeah,
still needs food.
it's so
Like
normalized. It's so,
it
so
is.
normalized. And I remember, back in the day when I had my own journey, like, yeah, it's absolutely, we play this compensation game and we
Yeah.
try to do mental gymnastics and just kind of make ourselves feel okay about the decisions in some way when it's like it's nourishment. And
Yeah.
that leads me into the next question I want to ask you is there's so much judgment and stigma and talk about like healthy foods, unhealthy foods. It's the season of a lot of sweets and sugars and you know how do you guide people through that? Because sure, objectively, we want to be mindful around sugar
Mhm.
and we don't want to be afraid of it either. So like how do you guide people through the conversations that are very focused on health and being healthy and oh no, that's unhealthy?
Oh, love this question. I'm also a certified diabetes educator, and so like diabetes work was kind of is like my first love with all of this. And that happens a lot in that world of like good food, bad food. And then around the holidays, more of these foods that raise our blood sugar and how do we interact with those or have a relationship with it. And this is where I really lean back on to encouraging people's autonomy. So we look at food, we want to look at food being neutral, not having sugar to have demonize it or have all this power over us, or because it's just sugary foods or it's just pastries. And innately there's no, you know,
Like
no,
moral value.
yeah, there's no more moral value to it. If someone decides to eat it and someone doesn't, it doesn't change how good of a person that you are. So one thing that we'll do is, instead of, because like vocabulary and words can matter, is we'll work on noticing when people are labeling foods as good as bad and going, oh, look, they're doing that, instead of having it just be normalized. It's go, okay, that's that's diet mentality. And having either replacing those words with words that feel true for the client. Sometimes we'll use like play foods or party foods or yeah, like something that is a neutral word that's not like bad, because then if we eat those bad foods, then we'll feel bad about ourselves, and it's
Mhm.
like this vicious cycle. So trying to get like a little bit more, yeah, light with the words that we're using too, and labeling these foods can be a really good place to start, and just starting the noticing of it. Um, and really going into that food neutrality, but also knowing, as we're wanting to have our own autonomy, because people will want to pressure us into having what they're having too. And then maybe sometimes it's like, oh yes, I do want that dessert or pastry or donut or whatever it is that's around. But we have to lean back on our autonomy and go, and sometimes I don't. And that's gotta be okay internally. And that's where we've got to identify what's influencing us outward, whether it's a company that's trying to sell us something, or someone in a social situation that wants us to eat something. How do we still honor our own autonomy in terms of our ability to self-govern and our ability to make our own decisions based on what we know that we need? And so just trying as much as we can, as I'll do with clients in session, is to strengthen that muscle of having that your authentic self, having confidence in knowing what you need. And sometimes it is going to be the play foods or the party foods, and that's okay. That's part of it. We have different types of hunger is another thing that I'll go over with clients, that sometimes even though we're not physically hungry, there's still like taste hunger or emotional hunger or all these other types of hunger that we could honor and plug in there and go, okay, yeah, no, I am craving that specific food. Or I'm not, like practicing with that. We'll do a lot of tracking. We'll have people write down the food. How did it make me feel? So we can basically just have more experience.
Yeah.
And it just really just takes practicing. And sometimes I eat that. Sometimes a client will eat like, oh, I ate that and I didn't feel good. And other times I ate that and I did feel good. And I did eat that food that had sugar in it and it was fine. And the more that we practice it, the more that we'll build that connection and that body trust.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but it's like almost like learning to walk again, where you're like starting all the way over with your relationship with food and trying to
Yeah.
build new experiences, unlearn
Yeah.
things that we've been taught and relearn and build new muscles.
Yeah, and separating out the emotion and what we're using it for. Like you said, sometimes it's taste, sometimes it's emotion, sometimes
Mhm.
it's pure bodily hunger. And I also think, you touched on the importance of mindfulness and tracking and being aware and communicating with your own body, because I think so oftentimes people, I have a lot of clients that say, like, I don't trust myself around X food because I'm going to feel so out of control or I'm going to have so much of
Mhm.
it. And that's exactly the relationship we want to look into, because
Yeah.
typically, like, a cookie, two cookies, a piece of something, like that's going to be satiating enough when we're eating it mindfully, and when we've also, had dinner and
Yeah.
we have a complete, meal. But if we're going to the cookies, out of pure emotion, or we didn't eat all day and now we're ravenous and that's like the thing we've forbidden from ourselves, so of course we're going to want like the whole box. Like, there's such a relationship that we really have to understand what it's doing for us, because most likely, especially with sugar, I found, like, I am a huge sweet tooth, and like, such a I have such a different relationship to it now, like, it's just like I get to that point where I'm like, okay, that's enough, or okay, now I really don't feel good. Like, whereas in the past, maybe I would have been mindless and I would have eaten more of it and then not felt good afterwards.
Yeah.
So we really do have to listen to our body, learn the subtle communication that it's trying to give us. Do you have any skills in practicing that specifically, and being able to track and witness and monitor and be mindful?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you've talked about this in past episodes, just bringing that curiosity, I think is a really great tool
That was
to
the word of
bring.
the day yesterday. I love that
Yes, it's
example.
like so great. And
Yeah.
so, if we're craving sugar, to see it as an opportunity to maybe learn about my body and unpack. So if clients do like to physically track, that's like a great tool, because then we can track like, what am I craving? What am I feeling? When was the last time I ate? How stressed am I? Like, we could track many things, or we can like just track one thing in terms
Yeah.
of yeah, like either when was the last time I ate, or what am I feeling right now? And then also just allowing yourself to have the food that you're considering. And then how did you feel afterwards?
Yeah.
And going back and looking for patterns and noticing, every time I feel like this is when I grab the sugar. Or um, and then also, I mean, there's so many things to look at. We want to make sure, like you said, that we're getting, back up, make sure we're getting enough consistent and adequate nourishment. Do I have balance among like work and family? Or did I recently change a medication or change my activity level? Is there something going on in the background maybe that I didn't know about? So we'll like look at those things. And then, because emotional eating is a part of being human. It doesn't have to be a negative thing, but if it's it can be out of balance if we are only using food for this particular emotion,
Yeah.
then we can zoom out and go, okay, wait, that's when I pass
Yeah.
it to the therapist and I go, hey, you guys, look at this.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like bringing that sense of curiosity and then being willing to have it be, they're not mistakes if you end up eating until you're overly full. It's like, oh, you can learn something about yourself or push
Yeah.
up against that boundary that your body wasn't aware of that you were hitting up against before. And that's a lot of times with it is like, we're going to push up against all these different extreme areas until we find our gray space that
Yeah.
exists just for us. And no one can tell, I can't tell a client what that is for them.
Yeah.
And
And
then
that's where I think the key of mindfulness and tracking is non-judgment as best to your
non-judgmental.
ability. You're not
Yeah.
sitting there saying, I'm such a terrible person because I had 4 cookies. It's like you're tracking very objectively, you're witnessing, noticing. You can talk about feelings, but really make sure you're not judging, condemning, criticizing,
Yeah.
because that is not what we're talking about here.
No,
And
no, we're
I
doing
love that it's
self-compassion. Yeah.
yeah,
All the way.
always, which is
Yeah.
so hard. I always feel like I need to, like, simple concept, really difficult to put into practice, especially if there's any history of trauma or, neglect or anything. It's very difficult to
Yeah,
be
that self-critic
patient with
will be
ourselves.
very loud.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. What are some of your favorite kind of holiday traditions? Maybe around food, maybe around mindfulness, self-care.
Oh, fun. I've been really with the it getting dark, I've been really leaning into candles recently. So I've been loving that. Holiday traditions. Yeah, my husband's family is in Mexico, and so we go to Mexico for the December holiday, which is so much food and family. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Awesome. And if you had one little word of wisdom to someone that's struggling, what would you say to them?
Oh, my first thought, I just get like an image of just like giving yourself a hug. Um, yeah, just like go easy on yourself. And keep showing up. I think that's like the biggest one. Like my clients that continue to show up, and even if it's feeling really dark or something was triggering and restrictions really loud, is just keep showing up in sessions with your team and for yourself. And I'll have clients that they'll want to cancel because they're not doing well. And I don't
Yeah,
have anything good to tell you. I'm like, no, that's
that's
definitely when we
exactly the
want to have
time.
sessions.
Yeah,
So we do have a lot of clients that'll drop off during the holidays for that reason, just feeling like too overwhelmed or like I just can't deal with this right now. So I just encourage people to just keep showing up for themselves.
yeah, that's a really beautiful reminder, especially as we get into the new year, new me, new behavior, new everything kind of, we're going to be
Yeah.
bombarded with that very soon. So
Yeah.
that's a really good reminder to keep showing up, especially now. And
Mhm.
even if you're, you know, falling off the course that you want to be on, having support, having accountability, showing up for yourself. It's not just for when you're doing great, like
No.
consistency isn't just like all the things you're doing great. It's
Mhm.
like you said, showing up, the good, the bad, being supportive, being compassionate with yourself. Yeah. And if
Yeah.
that is something that you find really difficult to do for yourself, that is what we are here for. This is like,
Yeah.
this
It's
is what we
yeah.
were made for, to
This
support
is
others.
Yeah, it's hard work. No one can tell you where you're supposed to be. And if you were supposed to be somewhere else, you might be there, but you're here. So it's
Yeah.
okay. We
Yeah.
gotta find that gray area.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking time to chat with us and share some of your knowledge and support for the holidays.
Oh yeah, you're welcome. This was fun. This is good to get out of work mode and zoom out and talk about these topics. Love it.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful holiday yourself.
You too.